Welcome, everybody, to Krystal, Kyle, and Friends. Today, we're going to be talking to Zach and Gavin of the Vanguard. And when I say we are going to be talking to them, I mean me, because Krystal is attending to some family stuff. So it's just me for the main event.
I know you hold it down, babe.
Yes, I will do my best to do exactly that. Should be fun. I like talking to those guys. Should be interesting. All right, so before we get into that, so there's a couple things we wanted to discuss with you guys. First of all, Charles Barkley is known as one of the guys on TV who keeps it the most real. I would argue that it's between him and Stephen A. Smith, who, speaks their mind most clearly with zero filters.
Yes.
And agree or disagree with the guys. I think that's, an endearing, authentic quality about them, about Charles Barkley. And you could even argue, Shaq and Kenny and EJ, who are on NBA on TNT with Charles Barkley, that they also fall into that category. They just have wonderful chemistry. But anyway, so Charles Barkley was at some event, and he really let it all hang out. So I want to give you a quote of what he said here, and then we'll get your reaction to it. So this is from Ben Collins, who's a senior reporter of NBC News. He tweets this out. I think the original reporting was actually from the New York Post. But anyway, so Charles Barkley said at some, event, private event, "Hey, let me tell you something. All you rednecks or assholes who don't want to drink Bud Light, fuck y'all. Hey, y'all can't cancel me. Hey, I ain't worried about getting canceled because let me tell you something. If y'all fire me and give me all that money, I'm going to be playing golf every fucking day." So listen, as I said last night, if you're gay, God bless you. If you're trans, God bless you. And if you have a problem with them, fuck you.
That's so beautiful. I love it.
So this is like, to me, when I read this and when I hear this, it's a good example of like the first person I've seen aggressively push back against the cancel culture brigade on the right. Because there's been this wave of anti-gay, anti-trans sentiment on the right, led by the likes of, the Ben Shapiros and the Matt Walshes and the Michael Knowles and many others.
Yeah.
And, any corporation that has a pro-gay ad or pro-trans ad, in the case of Bud Light, Dylan Mulvaney, a trans person, was on a can, and there was this big hoopla about it, and people were like, I'm not going to buy Bud Light anymore, and there were boycotts, and some places stopped carrying it, etc. And Charles Barkley's looking at it like, what are you guys doing?
Right.
Why are you doing this?
Well, and this all came in the context of he was like, I'm going to buy everybody drinks and I'm buying Bud Light because, like, fuck the haters, basically. And so, the funny thing is, though, he's being treated as, and I enjoy the comments. I'm glad we're featuring them because I think they're great. But also, he's on the side of like 70% of America, at least, that supports gay marriage at this point.
Yeah.
Including a majority of Republicans who support gay marriage at this point. And so there's been such an overplaying of the hand from, we had gay marriage, Supreme Court decision in Obergefell, and then there was a bit of a retreat on the right from those issues. They're like, all right, we're just not going to talk about that for a while. And then they picked up the quote-unquote trans ideology, and we're just going to focus in on the kids, and we think this is a winning issue. Now they have so overplayed their hand that they are wildly out of step with where the American public is, certainly on gay issues, but also on trans issues. And I don't think that they really realize that. Meanwhile, corporations are so like, they have no values other than making money. They're so skittish. So, they all were like backing off of their Pride Month displays or whatever over this minority conservative outcry over daring to express solidarity with their gay employees or whatever. So it's nice to see someone who's just like calling the bullshit.
So I have a theory I'd like to run by you.
Yeah.
I call it my normie theory of American politics. And it goes something like this. To normie Americans who don't follow this stuff very closely, whoever makes the most noise, is the loudest and the most obnoxious and arrogant, can fuck off. And there was a time where, you go back to 2015, and there were examples of like lefties who were trying to say, pull that video game off the shelves or get rid of that movie because we don't have enough representation of people of color in the movie, and so we're going to boycott this thing. And there was a reaction to that was like, relax.
Right.
Calm down. You're going a little too far. This is a little silly. Like, you're using authoritarian tactics over something that's basically a minor issue that can be addressed in much more reasonable ways. But now the pendulum has swung so far that it's totally in the other direction, where if you have a trans person in an ad for a Bud Light or on their face on a Bud Light can, it's like they act like it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
And they're the loudest, they're the most aggressive, they're the most obnoxious, they're the most sure of themselves. And so to normie Americans, they're like, who cares? Like, why? Like, of all the things that corporations do, why is this the most outrageous to you?
Right.
Just like they're hollow virtue signaling, saying, we don't hate various minorities. And they're like, oh, you should. It's like,
right.
Of all the things they do, I mean, the best example, I give this example all the time, but like, Jeremy Boring, who's the CEO of the Daily Wire, launched their own brand of chocolate for the Daily Wire. And he did this because it was Nestle or Hershey's or some company was doing woke stuff, and they were like, this is unacceptable, so we're going to launch our own chocolate. But the thing that amazes me is about a year before that, there was a story, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, where Nestle was accused of using literal slavery for their products.
Right.
And the Supreme Court basically said, hey, man, maybe there is slavery, maybe there isn't, but it's so far down the chain that I don't know what you want us to do about it, so we're going to go ahead and side with Nestle, and what it is type stuff. So the Supreme Court was like, okay, slavery's fine in certain circumstances. Nestle's like, we're going to keep using slave labor. And none of these idiots were like, well, I'm done with Nestle. I'm gonna boycott Nestle because they're using literal slavery.
Right.
But you have like a trans person or something, or a gay person, or
take the sexy green M&M away.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you're all like, I'm sorry, guys, but people on the far right here, they're dating themselves with their weird niche obsessions. It's like that DeSantis ad where it was like massively anti-gay, and it had, remember, it had Patrick Bateman in it, Christian Bale.
Right.
Yeah, and it was like, the reason that guy is, like, that character was known for being a serial killer of homeless people.
Right.
And like, you're running this as if, based Chad DeSantis is just like this guy.
Well, and that ad really exposed the way that their rhetoric has very quickly escalated and migrated, because when DeSantis passed his, like, don't say gay and anti-stop woke act and whatever, he framed it all as, this has nothing to do with gay people. That's just what my detractors are saying. This is all about parental choice. And, you know, when he framed it that way, in Florida at least, it was kind of like 50-50. Like, he had most of the public, bare majority of the public on his side on these issues. This ad pulled the headlines that were like, DeSantis passes most anti-trans bill in the history of the world. DeSantis is a bigot. DeSantis hates trans people. Those weren't this, but it was like in that vein.
Oh, it was very similar to that.
It was like that. And they're like, yes, yay, that's what we want. So completely pulling off the mask of any sort of semblance of like, this is just about parental choice. But I mean, to your point on the normie stuff, there's hardly a movie that comes out now that they're not freaking out about.
That's so true.
For some reason, or, you know, like the Barbie movie, there's something with Matt. There's this, the latest is over, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. There was the Little Mermaid freak out, whatever. And so the very thing that gave them a little bit of cultural power, which was them pointing out the obsessions and freakouts sometimes that went overboard from the left and being like, guys, like, calm down, relax.
Yeah. There's a video game character with big tits who's a woman. How dare you?
Right.
Like, really, who cares? We're gonna melt down over the big tits.
And that gave them actually a lot of sort of cultural cachet and power. Now they're right back to being the ones in full, constant moral panic mode. And I also just think on these particular issues, gay rights, trans rights, the critical race theory stuff, they really learned the wrong lesson from the Glenn Youngkin success in Virginia. They thought that that was all about these like niche cultural fixations that they have. They've leaned into them super hard. And, you know, then they got the 2022 midterm results, but they seem to have learned nothing from that whatsoever. I guess they just think like, oh, well, maybe that was just about abortion, but it hasn't stopped them from offering insane takes on abortion either. So they just continue down this path of increasingly marginalized and fringe views, but drinking their own Kool-Aid and convincing themselves that this is some sort of popular political program. So Charles Barkley comes in and takes a 70% majority position, and everybody's like shocked by it.
Yeah. No, and I think just the way he put it is chef's kiss perfect.
Yes.
He's just, he has a way with words. He's quite a wordsmith.
Yeah, it's such a compelling quality to see someone who's just free. You know, who's just going to say whatever the fuck.
And he means
think.
it too. He would rather play golf every day anyway than do all these shows.
It makes you wonder too, like, why aren't there more voices like that? Because there are a lot of rich people on television who could just go and play golf or live their life or do whatever it is they want to do if they got canceled, quote unquote. And yet everybody seems so, you know,
I think some of it is money. I think some of it is, you know, notoriety and avoiding negative headlines type stuff. Like, you want to be with the popular crowd who are wealthy and successful. You don't want to be an outcast and be,
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, and so he's right, but it takes honestly somebody brave to like sort of stand up to the mob and be like, "What the fuck are you babbling about? Shut the fuck up."
Well, it's the one good decision that CNN has made in recent years is to give him a show. So we'll see. How
Yeah,
it goes.
but I would prefer EJ, Kenny, and Shaq to be with him. Just recreate NBA on TNT, but give him political topics and say, "Go have." That would be my ideal.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll give it a shot.
Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.